1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yes. 8. Hi everyone. Welcome. Yes, it's part 8 of the Trumpeter 148 scale U-boat build, the U552. Yes, got it right. It's 8. This is part 8. I promise you, it's part 8. Right. Right. We'll go and have a look at doing some of it. See you in a moment. Right, hi, yes, it is part 8, and this is what we're going to have a look at in this video. We're going to have a look at weathering on the conning tower, which we built in part 7. Still got some of the masking tape on there, but not there. We'll get that off in due course. Yeah, we can see some streaking grime and things have gone on there, some different colours. I think it's just to sort of make it look a little bit more realistic, as though it's been at sea. Not too long at sea, but it has been at sea. We'll use some of the AK and the MIG weathering sets, the weathering enamels. So we'll have a look at them. But first, I'll just get this out of the way. First, we'll have a look at how the aft section goes together. Right, if you recall, this is all the clear part. So what I've done, I've decided I'm painting it, putting some a viewing sort of section through it. I can see that I've just slid the aft compartment into here at the moment. It's not permanently fixed yet because still a little bit to do. I need to add some of the crew in there, put a torpedo in the tube for a bit of effect. But then I'll show you how we've get it all primed up and painted up. Get the base coat down and a little bit of weathering streaking going on there. It's all done with the airbrush, really easy to do. I don't know if it's an actual technique, but I found a way to do it. We'll look at putting the running gear together, the propeller shafts and the props. We'll use some AK True Metals, get them all polished up, and we'll put it all together. And we're really starting to look a bit like a submarine now, granted sort of the back section. But yeah, let's go and have a look how we get all this together. It's over there somewhere. Okay then, here we are on the first part of the outer hull, which is the stern section. I don't know why Trumpeter have done this and made just this section clear on both sides. For one, it makes it a little bit difficult to film because it's all see-through, and there's sort of no difference between the colour and such, so it makes it hard to capture everything on camera. Nothing too mentionable about it. There's a little nub that's just on here somewhere that just needs to be cleaned off and rubbed down, made nice and smooth. There's a stern light to go on here and some railings for the radio antenna. But what I have gone on and done is started to put some of the stern gear on. That's the propellers and the rudders, the dive planes and such at the back. These here are the stern tubes. This is where the propeller shaft penetrates the hull, and in here we'll have some stuffing glands. Well, I probably think they would actually be on the section of the pressure hull itself. They have some stuffing glands to stop the water getting in. We come down to some struts and some strut bearings. That's in here. These the shaft will go along here, and run on a bearing in there. And what we need to do then is to add the propellers and the shafts. Now obviously there's two shafts and I don't know where the other one is at the moment. However, two propellers. When you cut these off, if you cut them off, make sure that you write on them in pencil which is the port, which is the starboard, because they are two different directions. Can you see? I don't know if you can see it on camera that the blades are bent the different ways, because when they're on the boat, I can't find the other prop shaft. I thought I had it with me a second ago. When they're on the boat, twin propellers rotate outwards. So to get them the right way around, make sure you mark them port and starboard. Right, to get these in, what I'm going to do with these, I'm going to paint these separately, so I'm not gluing these in at the moment, and they are able to be put in and out separately. So it slides in there like that. The prop will go on thus. Have I got the right side? That's port, yeah, that's the port one. That will go in like that, and then the dive planes. What I'm going to do, I'll take the shafts and the props off and then spray everything else together. The dive planes are both the same, one each side, and they are, if you see here, they are flattened so that they actually connect to each other as they go in here. When you cut the props off, by the way, when you cut the props off the sprue, you'll notice a small spigot right on the end of the prop, like these dive planes have. Yeah, small spigot just on here. Don't cut it off, it's important. There's one on there, there's one on the one on each rudder to hold, so that the rudder carriers can hold in, and then we can get these in here like this. He says they will go in. Hang on. Going in. There we are. The dive plates, they go on there like that. Props just broke off there, never mind. So this dive plates in, and they will act together like that. So what we can do now, just one thought, when you put the rudder shaft in for the port side, for the starboard side, is it? Hang on. Which way around? Yep, the port side. I'll bring this in. Right, when the prop shaft goes in on the port side, when the interior goes in like this, first of all, up here you need to make sure that this web doesn't go the wrong side of the rudder. Goes down the centre, and then this here pointy stick, this prop shaft here that comes from the motor room, and the generator, the electric motor here that spins, if this prop shaft is too far back, it will hold your interior out. So what you need to do is make sure that them two don't bind together. They should be actually maybe joined together, but I can see no way of doing that, which also brings me on to another note. It's worth telling you this, because if you're building it, when you get to the sections, you don't have to find these bits out, because I've already done it for you. Right, these bits here connect onto here as the steering connections to the rudder. They come from the emergency steering section here, connect on there. Now they are supposed to connect, they're supposed to connect to these posts here, and I have absolutely no idea how to do that, and I'm not going to be particularly bothered about doing it because I've decided that in this section I'm going to paint it. Right, let's turn it the other way around and I'll show you what we're going to do. This prop here has actually broke off the rudder carrier, so it's a little bit loose, so we'll just take it out so it doesn't get broke. Right, I've decided what I'm going to do with this submarine, the clear sections, I'm going to paint them. However, what I'm going to do is leave the clear sections, is leave parts of the sections clear so we could see inside, and all the tops up here, which is really not a lot of detail to miss out on, plus you don't want to see all the wires and other things. And I can't understand why Trumpeter have left this section clear on the other side, because there's not really anything to see. So this side will be totally painted. This side here I'm going to mask off. Right, let's get on with some masking. Just simple Tamiya tape. Way to work out is where we want to mask off from and do the outline in the Tamiya tape. So let's have a look. Okay then, right, finished the masking. Took a little bit longer than expected because I took all the masking that I'd started before. I took it all off again and started again. What I've done, as you saw what we started before, I've masked the edge. If you can see for the light shining, I've masked the edge of the area in Tamiya masking tape because that gives a lot sharper edge. And also it's a lot neater. Make sure that you rub it down because the paint will bleed underneath at the rivets. Sort of really work it down. And then all I've done for the rest of this, it's yellow. It's not masking tape, it's actually electrician's tape, because basically I've got loads of it, so I'll just use that. Just use ordinary masking filler tape, or a bit of newspaper tape. Some if you're doing it this way anyway, use some bulk masking tape. Some of the cheaper decorating stuff will actually do for that, as long as you don't leave it on too long, because you can never get it off. That's that. I've got to the final bit. I've repaired the rudder that came off before. All you need to remember when you put these on is just make sure that the rudders are in the dead ahead position, because it looks a little bit odd when it's on the stand. It does look a little bit odd if the rudders are a little bit skew with. You need to check that they are dead ahead, that they're not squeezed in together coming in, or they're splayed out, and that should be right. And the rudder carriers should be directly below the rudder shaft, so it should be a straight. It's all angles, it's all working everything out. That's that. As you see, I've took the prop shafts out and the propellers are off. We'll spray them separately. What we're going to do, I'm going to go across to the spray bench now and spray all this, give it a black undercoat. I've got some UMP primer here, which is an ideal starter for this. I'll also do that with the prop shafts and the props. I did find the other prop shaft. It was in there, wasn't it? If you probably noticed it if you watched the video back, I'm sure it was in there. Propellers, once again making sure that I'm not going to get them mixed up. We could get them all sprayed black, because black is the perfect base for the AK True Metals. So that's that. We're ready to get some spray painting on the hull. Oh, one extra point. I've got to block the end off. I think I'll stick it down with some double-sided tape. I'll stick it onto some card just to stop some overspray going inside, because it'd be a bit pointless masking it all off on the outside if we get paint on the inside. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to cross the spray bench. Shouldn't take too long, then I'll let it dry, cure for a bit, and we'll come back and we'll look at about getting ready for masking and getting some of the base coat down, which will bring us another step forward. Right, okay, that's that bit done. That's all the masking done on the back end. It's not much exciting, but it's coming together now. The running gears in, all ready to go. The dive planes at the back, I'll glue them in position once I know that I can get the propellers and shafts in, because they might have to come out yet. Anyway, right, let's go get to the spray booth and we'll see you in a moment. Oops. Alright, welcome back. I've left the hull over in the spray booth just to dry and go hard. I'll probably leave that until tomorrow now, till it's cured and such. Yeah, it doesn't take long to dry, but just to let it cure. I'll give it a second coat because, as you saw on the conning tower, I'm going to leave the deck the primer colour because it's perfect for what we need, which is this black. So what I thought we'd do while that was drying, we'll just come back and recap on how we can turn the propeller and propeller shaft into this. Really easy to do. Don't worry, I have labelled it. This one's the starboard one. I didn't need to label that one as well, so as long as I remember that this is a starboard one, I don't need to go right to the end because you won't going to see that anyway. But to achieve this effect, we use it before, the AK True Metal. I just thought we'd go through a bit of a recap. This is obviously the brass one for the propeller. I know that propellers are usually bronze, but the brass gives the same sort of colour as that. And for the shaft itself, I'll use steel. Once again, of an ideal colour. Right, so I'll show you how to do this, and I've really worked it out now since we first used it on the torpedoes at the start. One of the best ways to do this is apply it with, in small areas, you can apply it just with a cotton bud. Just brushing it on. Apply it with a paintbrush, cotton bud, your finger, anything really. Just make sure it does work best over the black, over a black primer. Get my words right. And I know I think just about when I started the submarine, this was a new product on the market, and people were asking lots of questions about it, which we didn't really know the answers to because AK sent it out in a little blister pack, but there's not particularly any instructions for it. So it's just all guesswork. So what I found with this is to get it on, slap it on. Yep, slap it on. Don't need to worry about the back of the prop because that'll be in the thrust bearing, and it'll be in the strut bearing, so we won't really need to really see that. So we're not going to be too fussed about that. Right. So that's that. Yeah, it's quite not. Don't put too much on. Don't really put it on thick. It's a bit of, I think it's wax. I've never found out the makeup of it yet, but it's like a wax and it smells quite nice actually. It gives the impression that it's like a furniture wax, if anything. I'm sure if you know, just put a comment below in the video. And we'll see where it is. Yeah, I'm sure it's some sort of wax. Anyway, what we have done before is actually left it to dry, but I think that's actually the wrong way to do it. Just leave it for a couple of seconds, 30 seconds or something. Yeah, by the time you've started one and gone around the other prop, you can then come back and buff it up. Just use an old cloth, something like, I'll just try to keep this in focus for you because we're moving about. Yeah, just use an old t-shirt type material, something like that, and just rub it off. I found that if you leave it too long and it dries, you can't get the brush marks out of it, so you've got to give it another coat across the top. It's no effort, there's no effort in it, it just really comes up brilliantly and it gives a fantastic finish, just like real metal. So we're already starting to shine. Let's try to keep it in so you can see that. And yeah, as I say, they would be bronze, but brass is an ideal traditional colour for boats and things. I'll just turn my heater off because it's going to make a noise. Yeah, that's it. As I film this, it's just get to the end of winter, and we just try to keep the chill out of the shed. But you probably watch it in the middle of summer. You'll be in your shorts with your drinks with ice and things like that. Another piece of advice: when you're doing it, wear gloves because it gets all over. I haven't worn gloves because I forgot, and I thought, well, it's mucky now. Just get a bit messy, but yeah, that's it. That's the way to apply AK True Metal. I've just got to do the shaft as well, and I think you can agree it does really produce a nice colour. Let's focus it again. If the white balance could stay still. Yeah, that's that. So there's the shaft as well. What I've done with these, while I've had it out, I've had a look and I thought I'd have a go at the stands. These are the display stands that the submarine will stand on, and I've done them in brass. Or I've done one of them in brass, and it looks alright. Yeah, just apply it with a brush. I think there's still a bit of wax left on this. Just apply it with a brush, go all over it, and then once again, before it's dry, give it a buff up, get rid of the marks, get rid of the brush marks, and it'll I think that'll look the part. I think that's that. Right, we'll go back and get the submarine out of the spray booth when it's dry. As I said, I'll probably leave that until tomorrow, and then I'll come back and we'll look at getting it masked up and putting in some of the first the base colours on it. Alright, that's that bit done. AK True Colours, True Metal, that's the one. See you in a moment. Look at them fingers, look, it gets everywhere. Alright, well, here we are back from the spray booth with the rear section of the hull. Once you get some paint on this, the detail really pops out. I don't know if you could pick up on here, I know it's black, but you can see that the rivet detail and everything pops out. I know at this time we haven't opened the freeing ports on this clear plastic because I didn't want to encounter any troubles with the acrylic splitting and things like that. So we've reached the stage now where we can apply some paint to the hull. What we're going to do first, we're going to have a go at applying this top light grey. Well, what we're going to do is actually use the same colour that you saw us use in the conning tower. Obviously we can't paint the whole hull in one because it's so big, and I think also it's better to paint it before the internals go inside, and that way none of the internals are going to get damaged as we put everything together. Right, so we need to work out where our masking needs to go, because we're going to mask off this waterline here, the demarcation between the two colours, the bluish anti-fouling and the top colour grey-green as such. Really, it's just a matter of having a look at the diagram, the illustration, and trying to work out, well, we could see here, if we could get this close enough without it going out of focus. Let's focus it in a little bit. Whoops, there we go. We could see here that the waterline comes up and reaches this first rib, just right in there, the first rib on the ballast tanks, on the saddle tanks here, so that we now know that it goes from there and it touches the bottom of the rubbing strake back here. So we've now got two fixed points that we can work to. Right, so how do we do it? Right, to me a tape ideal for it, or any similar tape, but you need a nice strong low tack tape. To me is good because it doesn't usually pull the paint off, especially this stuff. Hopefully it's not going to pull off anyway because it's pretty solid stuff. And we can start by applying it in here. Well, I tell you what, we'll start at the back end, because what I've done, I've already masked off the first half here. Got to check that it's straight. Yep. Mask it off, rub it down, and make sure you get the masking tape rubbed on all those rivets so it doesn't bleed under. And it also gives us a reference for the second part, for the second half of the hull, because there's nothing worse than having a waterline that, as you look around the ship, as you go around the back, you see that the waterline misses, and it really stands out if it does. I've seen some ships that, well, you'll have seen ships yourself that not only have waterlines, they have a boot topping. A boot topping is usually a different colour between the anti-fouling on the bottom and the main hull colour. Specifically, usually you'll see it on warships. In the UK, I think it's a black boot topping, quite a wide one. The Russians have a very thin, narrow one, same as the Americans. They all have different styles, but if they don't match up, it does stand out quite a bit. So what we need to do here, we've got two reference points to make our first point of contact, is just under the rubbing strake, and we can line it up with the tape going round from the other side in there. Just rub the first few inches down, not everything else, leave it, and then pull out some tape, pull it out away from the hull, and get to your other reference point, which is just that rib just on top of the ballast tank, just on there, and then hold it in, and then you can just lightly rub it down. Just hold it in place, just so you can check along the length. Yep, looks all right to me, and we could call it done and just rip it off. There we go. It's as easy as that. If you try and do it inch by inch, you'll find it'll go up and down like that. So do it the way that the guys do in the car detailing business when they're putting pinstripes and things on. Run it out just like we've done, and then we can take our time and make sure everything's seated and the paint isn't gonna run under where the rivets are. Hopefully everything's going to be live on here. We'll see it painted, and we'll wait until it's dry, and then we'll take the masking tape off. Right, next stage, just run another length of tape along there. Not so fussy this time about it being so straight, because the first one's our marker. There we go, just in that. Oops. Put that there. This is just to give the tape just that little bit of extra something. I can't think of the word. Right, then what we'll do after that is go down with oops, dive plane falling off. I haven't glued these in yet, so we'll be gluing them in shortly. Right, so what we're going to do now is we'll just take some tissue or some newspaper. Probably not, well, it won't matter with it being black, but probably try not to use newspaper. I know these days it's not as bad as it used to be, but in days ago, using newspaper used to leave a black inky colour on your model. So right, that'll do there. You put that on. Just a little bit of tape just to hold it for now. Get the idea until everything's glued on. Oops. You need about 4 hands for doing this. Right, I'll go continue masking this all up. Obviously there's the deck to do as well, because I'm leaving the deck black. I'm leaving it in this black primer, and I'll work on it and weather everything up on top of that. So that'll do. I'll run some more of this just along the edge, and then I'll mask the deck off as well. Right, there's a bit of masking to do, so then I'll get the paints and things ready, and we'll come back to the bench and we'll do some spraying, he says. Right, see you in a moment. Ready for the painting. Right, that's everything masked up. I thought what I'd do, instead of going over to the spray booth, I'd set the desk up and we could spray it over here so you can see a little bit better. Well, I hope you can see it better, because it's a little bit difficult just to show you the blacks and things like that. But certainly all the detail is starting to pop now, and it's time to put the base coat on. As we're over at the bench and not at the spray booth, I've got my mask. I'll use this. I've opened the doors to the workshop. I've got a bit of free flow air through the workshop, and probably because I'll have my mask on, and the compressor will be kicking in and out as we spray this. Hopefully I'll do a little bit of a voiceover on the top of this so you can hear what's going on. What we're going to do, as I say, we're going to put the first coat on using German Kriegsmarine Schlickgrau, I think that's right. It's the one we've used before, as you saw it used on the conning tower. Unlike the conning tower, instead of pre-shading the lines in that, I've sprayed the whole thing black. I've done a different way around this time. Instead of spraying it black and pre-shading the panel lines, I thought I'd do it this way and try to pick out the lines as we go along. A little bit of a different technique, but we'll see how it goes anyway. A little bit of tape just lifting there, just checking it all along, but I think we're alright. It's not that important on this level, because we've obviously got to take the tape off, and if we've got any bit of spray that's crept under the tape, we'll hopefully be able to clear that with the next coat of paint when we put the anti-fouling on. That's it. I'm trying to remember what we're talking about now. Right, so I'll get everything set up. I'll move the camera in a little bit closer so you can see what's going on, because as I said, it's getting quite difficult now to get everything in shot all the time. But yeah, I don't know if you catch that. Yeah, there's some detail on that. We'll try and pick that out and we'll show you how it's going to go. I've already got some thin paint, so you might be seeing that just pouring into the top of the airbrush, H&S, and we'll get on with it. Right, okay, mask on, here we go. Okay, right, Dave, oh, hang on a bit. Sorry, I forgot to take the mask off. Yeah, just a standard technique for applying the base coat here is just put it on, but don't put it on too thinly. We still want to show a little bit of the black primer through the transparency of the base coat, so don't put it on too thick, because if you don't put it on too thick, you can do the next technique, which I'll show you here. What we're going to try and do is replicate some streaks. All we're doing now is between each bank of rows of rivets is applying more paint. Because we've left the paint still thin and it's sort of reasonably transparent to see the primer through it, if we apply more paint we could give it a sort of streaking effect, a weather washed, worn streaking effect. And if you watch how it builds up, initially the paint will dry and it won't look any different at all, but just go back over them and apply more paint. So once we get to the end of this row, the first sort of stripes should be sort of dry or drying off. Just be random about it, but try randomness, but keep it a bit of a, keep it sort of between. Try and keep it between the lines of the rivets as a guide, and it looks a nice effect. And I'll show you it in a moment. Doesn't matter if the paint sort of comes out a little bit too fast, because we can make it up by just applying less on the next time round. And you can see now how the layers of paint are starting to build up. Just a very light overspray, just to even it up a little bit, just to blend it all together. Just a light overspray just to finish. And you can see now how the effect is starting to build up. Just some touch-ups. Believe me, there is some paint coming out of this airbrush. It doesn't seem to look it on the video. And one last coat just to finish them off. You can always add more if when it's dry. If you think it needs some more, you can always put more on, but try not to put too much. Okay, there we are. I think that'll about do it. It doesn't look much now, but when it all comes together, it'll look right. Not giving it a full thick coat, as we said before. It's just this I think looks quite good because it gives the paint that washed out look and a bit of streaking. We can follow that up with some streaking from the rust and the other weathering effects that we're going to do later on. But now we'll let this dry and then we'll get the masking tape off and we'll have a look. See you in a moment then. Now the moment of truth. I always like this bit. This is a part of model making and painting that I actually love. It's like unwrapping a Christmas present. It's taking the masking tape off for the first time, and you then find out whether it's worked or it hasn't worked. Yep. This part, the lower part, really, in this in this stage is just to sort of not protect it, but just so we don't lose waste paint and get paint everywhere. And with the next stage that we can mask up to. So this is the water line. What we used to do with our model radio controlled boats, we used to put them in the bath, fill the bath with water, put them in the bath, and then we'd ballast them down to the correct depth, and then we'd add talcum powder to the water, and hopefully that if you kept the bath without splashing and wobbling, the talcum powder would leave a faint line around the boat, and you could work to your paintwork, your painting to that for the water line. Right, here we go. Pulling off masking tape after you've painted, pull it back on itself like this so it doesn't rip, so it doesn't rip the paint off. Looking so good so far. These live colours really are a nice colour. Whether U552 was actually painted this sort of grey-green, as I say, it's really a good colour. One minute it looks green and the next minute it looks grey, but I think it looks quite an authentic Second World War colour. So we're coming up to the rubbing strake, coming up to the aft end, and we're about done. There. It looks alright to me. Let's have a look at the other side. Oops. Yeah, we've done the other side as well. We've got to be careful that we don't pull the masking off for the viewing window that we've got. So we've just got this to take off, leaving it all on right till the end. This bit here to come off. Oops, a little bit broke off there. Never mind, we could soon fix that. Just a bit of glue. And once again, putting the tape back on itself. This primer, UMP primer, is really solid stuff. I don't think we need to worry too much about pulling it off. This part is just it's already masked and painted for the next section. So, oops, sticky to my fingers. Right, let's take this bit off now. Just catch the end of it. Been biting my nails, so they're a bit blunt. There we go. This bit comes off. Don't worry too much about that bit until we get to the painted end, and there we go. That's the other side done. Contrast on the picture's looking a little bit better now. It's still a bit grainy just because of the picture and the colours, but there you can see how the detail on this clear section has really popped out because we put some paint on. I'll leave the deck masking on just until we get the rest of the hull painted, then it can come off because there's a few bits to go in there. So right, I'm going to leave that overnight, then we'll come back and we'll have a look at painting the lower part of the hull. I'm interested to see what colour that's going to be actually, because I've not really used any of it yet, but we'll be doing a blue anti-fouling, and everything gets covered in that. So we'll sort them out, get these all painted and stuck it, get these all glued and stuck properly, and we're ready to go for the next bit. Right, I'll go and prepare, mask all the top. I'll leave it overnight, mask all the top off now, and then we can get on the bottom and paint that. See you next time. See you in a moment. Right, welcome back. I just put in the propeller on just to have a look at it, to really, because I can't wait really, just to see what it looks like altogether. Yeah, as you see, I've done the painting of the anti-fouling. Yeah, I was gonna show it, but it's gone on just the same as the top coat, the upper coat. It's just that when I came to spray it, I thought, well, you can't really see anything because it's going on as black, and it was really just a little bit difficult to see, so it's just gone on just the same, and then give it some of that impression with some of the stripes on it, just picking out the centres between the rivets, if you could see in there. I think it sort of shows that quite well. And now's the time I thought I'd come back. Oops, I got a bit of, oh, bloody heck, got some silver on there. Never mind, I'll spray that over in a moment. Now's the time to take off the masking tape and see what it looks like. Right, here we go. As I said before, one of my favourite parts of the build, and hopefully as the colours, as the masking tape comes off, it will start and show the difference between the black and the grey. Hopefully you can see that. It's stuck on there, I'll leave that for the moment. Now then, here's the, take this off nice and slowly, but as you saw before, rip it back along on itself. Yeah, it's just a little bit of paint creeping under here, but I think we can probably get away with hiding that with some rust effects. There, that's that side done. Flip it around the other side. This electrician's tape's not stuck down really firmly, it's just in place and stuck along the Tamiya tape. Right, this bit. Once again, a couple of little spots where the paint just has crept underneath the tape, but that's just around the areas where there's been rivets, so it hasn't really caught properly, but never mind, as I say, we could touch it up. And finally, let's have a look at this viewing window. If there's any leakages around this, I do have an idea of what to do to replace it, repair it. But let's get it off first. Well, I stuck it down too well. Right, let's try the bottom one. That bit. Just forgetting where it's gone now. That's that bit. Now I know that normally with canopies we'd dip them in clear or something like that, but this big submarine hull, yeah, it's going to take a lot to get this dipped in a clear coat, so hopefully we'll just be able to sort it out with this. So far so good. I think this is the final piece of masking tape that we can get the Tamiya tape off. Okay, let's have a look. Whoa, yes, oh, I do like this bit. Just seems to be a little bit of a paint creep just down under here. I'm not sure. I think it's got through the masking tape somehow, but not to worry, we can clear that up. Oh, there we are. There is the clear section done. Right, let's have a bit difficult to see because it's just black on the other side. So I think a way we could check it is to bring the switch room in, slide that in there, and voila! I think that'll do. I think that looks all right. Can't stick it in yet. Still got some crew figures to put in there, and then fasten it all up with the rest, tie it up with the rest, and at that we can now move on and have a look briefly. We'll probably do it in another section. We'll have a look briefly at just touching some of these marks up and adding just a general first bit of weathering, and we'll get this deck bit off as well. Alright, see you in a moment then. Right, hi there, welcome back. We interrupt this program to bring you a short announcement. Due to a recent Windows update on the computer, all the microphone settings were unknowingly set to 0. That means the rest of this program will have to be completed with the aid of a voiceover. We do hope this does not spoil your enjoyment of the program too much. We now return you to your program. Okay, sorry about how we're having to do this, but here we go anyway. I'll try and explain what's happening in the videos. What we're going to use in this is some streaking grime, some streaking effects. We're also going to use the light rust wash. That's really just to be giving a little bit of a contrast between the two colours. What you do have to do though is make sure you shake these products really well and put them out the way so you don't knock them over. You're guaranteed to do that. The little bit at the back I'm just pointing to there, that's just a sponge to hold it upright. You'll find that these effects work much better if you can sort of work on the same plane that they're actually going to be used at. So we'll start with the I've just got to check myself. Yeah, it's a streaking rust effect, and all we're going to do is look at general areas where things will go rusty naturally, and the rust will gather. Usually you'll find it's where the water gathers and the weak points, like on this rail here it would be fairly weak. The paint will be fairly weak where it gets welded to the superstructure, and all we do is just put a touch of it on and just drag it down. Don't need to be too fussy about it at the moment because you can always correct it. The whole thing has been given a coat of clear Alclad 2, the Aqua Gloss, and we're just looking now and picking out just random areas where where the water would gather and turn things into rust. Sometimes it's not actually rusty there, but it's where the water gathers and rust that's run off the rest of the surfaces sort of gathers. So we're looking here, we're doing this bit just on top of the navigation light. Then once again we're talking about as the water runs down, it will gather just above this sort of ridge on the this breakwater on the conning tower itself, so it will gather just at the back. And we just keep adding a little more. Just use a nice thin brush. I find that just resting my hand on the bench and just dragging it down, just light. If you pick out sort of prominent areas, rivets, things like that, just drag. There's no specific way of doing this, just do it as you feel. Once again, underneath the conning tower, underneath the breakwater, there's one or two hatches and things like that. Obviously the hinges that get open and the paint would wear off, and then chips. Anywhere there'd be a chip, it would just be exacerbated by rust. Looking around other areas as well, following the same pattern around. Just down there on the other side of the ladder rungs. Obviously if you get too much paint, too much of the enamels on your brush, just dab a little bit off. Remember, you can always add, but it's harder to take away. So once again, we're just dragging them down a little bit more because I think they want to look a little bit better. Now this can be as long or as slow a process as you want. What I have to find the best way to do it is put a little bit on first, do the first streak, and then go back and apply a little bit more, and then a little bit more. It's the same as chipping. If you're doing chipping, start with a small chip and make the chip bigger. Try not to start with a huge chip or a huge, in this case, a huge streak. Make it bigger as you go along, add more and more to it. Try not to do it all in one. It gives a much nicer, realistic effect. And if you put too much on, just a cotton bud, just lightly soaked in some odourless thinners, I'll just wipe it off. Or you can even thin it and make it run. Being on a gloss coat, it will actually run if you hit it right with the right amount of liquid. It'll just run off. I'm just blending some together now, just pulling it all together and blending it. Already you can see effect. We've only put half a dozen streaks on there and you can already see it getting an effect in there. Now what we're going to look at now is putting some streaks just down in here, just right at the bottom of the conning tower is a ridge where it joins the deck. So if we put quite a big dab of the streaking effect in there, it will actually run capillary action and let it run along the ridge because we've put the gloss coat on. And the same again at the front. Once again there's a ridge in there, so a dab of it, and watch it run down. Just drag it down, that's it, and along the weld at the bottom as well. Don't worry if you put too much on, because we're going to take it off again in a moment. Just put some more in. Reload the brush, put some more in, drag it along where you want it to go. Now I'm sure at this place I do go for my cotton bud and dab some up. It's a bit hard this, because I gave my commentary when I was doing it. I talked you through what I was doing. Now I'm having to try and remember and watch and do it all again, and I can't remember what happened. Alright, just let it go off a little bit if you want to, but cotton bud dabbed in some odourless thinners and just wipe away the excess. And I promise you, it does leave a realistic effect, this stuff. This is streaking effects, streaking rust effect, AMIG 1204. There, so that's about the first level of streaking rust effects done. So we're going to leave that there and we'll let that go off, and now we'll go and move on to the next stage of weathering, a different rust effect. Alright, we'll do that in a moment. Okay, we're moving on to the next stage. We're going to use some of the AK Naval Ships Weathering set, and from this we'll use the streaking grime for light grey ships, and we'll also use the salt streak for ships. Never used them before, so we'll see how they go. This voiceover thing is hard work. Oh, well, here we go. The first one we're going to use is salt streaks for ships. I've not used it before. Let's have a look. I know it comes out the bottom quite thickly. When I first applied it in this video, it did seem as though it was rather too thick, but I persevered. I think the idea to put it on, let's just get the part. Right, put it on, and it goes on quite blobby. You think, oh dear, that looks a bit stark and bright. But just put it on, and like we've done with the other techniques, just the streaks and such, put it on, and then with this I'm tempted to think that it's best sort of smoothed out really, or spread a little bit. What you'll find when you're at sea with ships is the salt water will wash onto the superstructure and the decks and such like that. Then it'll dry off, leaving a salt residue behind, and I think this is an idea really to replicate that. So just sort of thin it out and put it on. Don't go over, for want of a better pun, don't go overboard with it. Just in areas that where the seawater would sort of stop and gather in all the nooks and crannies. Then using your cotton bud, just thinned with some odourless thinners, just spread it out a little bit to give that effect. just picking out some of the raised detail, just to highlight it really, give it a good coat and effect. Now in the decks perforated, so seawater would gather and pool and puddle, and it would gather in all the holes, leaving a salt residue in there. So it's more or less like using this as a wash. So wash it over, slap it on, and then just thin it out, just to give that impression of salt sort of getting stuck in all the holes in the deck. If you want to be more selective, just pick out areas where you want it to go. Just continue right round. As I always say, less is more, but keep going, just even everything out. And as I can see now, when the part's being done, it does give a really nice effect, just to give it like a salt wash really. Right, we'll get to about the end of this tutorial for the weathering. I do apologise for it being sort of condensed really. There is a lot more to go into it, but thanks to Windows, I'll probably have to do this again. I'll do it on the deck and the superstructure, sorry, the deck and the hull of the submarine, so we can have a look at it once again. But anyway, thanks for watching. Yeah, part 8 we got there in the end. Hope this hasn't spoilt your enjoyment too much, but thanks anyway. Thanks from Ted at eModels, emodels.co.uk, and hopefully you'll be around for part 9 when everything will hopefully go right. So that's it. I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Bye now.